Shoplifting! Never thought I'd be making a video about shoplifting, but here we are. Just some words that were sent my way in the not terribly recent past is made me want to visit this conversation slightly. Mainly because of the fact that a lot of the things said were said by people in a community that I am very passionate about, especially since I came out, and I'm going through hell and high water to go ahead and stand up as hard as I can for that community. And these people are actually very important to me. That I don't know who these people are personally, but them and so many others are who are on my mind as I continue to fight a battle against a lot of atrocities that have gone to our LGBTQ plus community and just beyond all the other bullshit for anyone who knows what I'm doing. And so for people to go ahead and sling baseless accusations at me and use a lot of powerful words with what I perceive as mindless use it's frustrating, right? It's really frustrating to go ahead and bust my balls to go ahead and take a lot of shit for other people and for other people to not do me the simple respect of actually reading what I'm saying or hearing what I'm saying or caring about what I'm saying is difficult, particularly because of the inflation of a perspective that never was even brought up in the first place. What originally started in a comment, first and foremost, was following something that another user has actually offered to promote, and I banked on it on top as well. But somebody who's pretty much looking for work, so every time that he posts something that I consider funny, I throw out a hashtag, hire Brett Jones. Guy deserves a job. I've really enjoyed some of his video clips. I enjoy his takes. And I absolutely love boosting it, and I can't wait to find out that the guy ends up getting some employment again that he's happy with, right? So as per the norm, I go ahead and I see something, I quote tweet it, and then I get a little cheekily mindful, and then somebody decides to go ahead and turn it into a debate. The obstacle that I have is that in the interest of the debate, that in any debate that I participate in, I speak objectively, because objective reasoning is based on fact. Okay? When you're using fact to discuss a point, you either accept the fact, right? Or you learn how to apply the fact to what your counterpoint is. And what's frustrating, so in the topic of shoplifting, that the original tweet was everybody should be allowed to shoplift 3 times a year. Okay, and so then what became on that is somebody else mentions that it was like shop as much as or shoplift as much as you want or whatever. And my counterpoint to that, very simply and very objectively, is shoplifting creates a perpetual issue. Because if shoplifting as a practice is used as a response to a poor situation of whether it's economic wealth or survivability or just something that essentially is, I am struggling and I need. All that shoplifting truly does is delve into that problem deeper. Because unfortunately, the cost of shoplifting makes the opportunity for survivability more difficult down the line. And then for some reason, that turned into an episode of morality. Because as I was discussing the art, the practice, the element, the actual concept of shoplifting, it became a conversation about who shoplifts, the morality of shoplifting. Is shoplifting deserved? Is shoplifting warranted? And at no point was I ever going after that. Fundamentally, the action of shoplifting, as I described, is selfish. Because the root principle of shoplifting, when you break down all of the other values as the reason, the location, to whom, the interests, the product, the frequency, the necessity, when you take away all of those very subjective elements of the practice of shoplifting, it boils down to one message that is universal to everybody who participates with shoplifting. It is a personal intention of saying, my needs are greater than you. I want this because reason. Whether I'm starving and I need this banana, or fuck capitalism, I'm going to steal a TV. The message, very simply, is what I want matters more than what you feel you should have. And that fundamentally is selfish. That is objective. But then all of a sudden, we end up bringing into a conversation about the who's. Or the who does it more. And then even down the line, someone else decides to squeak in with, fuck poor people, right? At no point has my discussion ever been about the economic status of an individual. Because for what right do I have to do that? That's rather nice to go ahead and just read my message of the act of shoplifting to assume that I'm punching down on a community. My net worth starts with a negative. So who am I to go ahead and say fuck poor people? My net worth could get out of a negative sooner should I do other practices. I could sell this computer. I can go ahead and sell some other products. I can decide to trim some of my wardrobe. I can decide to pick up another job. I can decide to stop glamming up when it's available. I can create those decisions to adjust my net worth. But fundamentally, when my net worth starts with a negative number, who am I to go ahead and say poor people don't deserve whatever? What qualifies as poor? So let's take that argument and shove it to the side, because that was unnecessary, because it was completely emotionally based on words that has never once been said. And I'm very frustrated of the emotional reaction and the accusations put upon me by people that I'm busting my ass for on a daily, nightly basis to create a safer community for all of us. And this is what I get as a thank you. And I'm not even looking for a thanks, but the least I'd be asking for is the opportunity for somebody to slow down and read words for what they are. Even proposing a question about, has anyone looked at a profit and loss statement? Does anyone know what a profit and loss looks like? And then that's received as, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. It's a simple question. Has anyone reviewed a P&L statement? But yes, let's go ahead and assume that I'm telling other people that they're fucking morons. Because I'll tell you right now, if I want to tell somebody they're a moron, if I want to tell somebody they're amazing, I can do that. I have no shame in that. I have no shame in subtly suggesting an interpretation. I spoke words. And then to tell me that I need to reassess my words when the interpretation is the responsibility of the person reading those words? No thanks. I am very frustrated to have that happen. And what really gets to me the most is the comment about this is evil. And that evilness stemmed from a part of a thread in the same conversation to start things with, where I would continue to reiterate fundamentally over and over and over and over, at no point is it right to take from others. And it doesn't matter the scale of the situation. At no point in anyone's life is it ethical or moral to take from someone else. Break down the quantities, the values, the situations, the who's, the what's, the when's, the motivations. Take all of that away. The action of somebody taking from someone else is immoral. Because a lot of these individuals are also saying the exact same thing in regards to, let's just call them human rights. That we're fighting against the situation where our values are being taken away from us because of the decision of another. And that's not okay. So fundamentally, are we not being robbed by others of opportunity? And we're fighting against that? And you want to go ahead and counter robbing with robbing? Or I'll take it one step further. If you want to go ahead and condone theft, for whatever reason, for whatever motivation, whatever necessity, if you condone theft, then you must accept being robbed. But we don't want to do that, do we? That's my message. Taking from another, no matter what, is wrong. That's the only thing that I continue to repeat. The action of taking from another is selfish. And then, like I said, this is evil. That frustrated me to see. Because I suppose the concept of what evil is pretty varied, I suppose. That thread ended up having an incredibly biased and, in real life, in real world circumstance, incredibly unrealistic thought experiment. Where I was proposed with a very biased situation of, if I'm starving, do I steal from somebody or starve to death? And my response was, under no circumstance will I put harm on another person intentionally. Directly at another individual to say that, nope. And more on top of that, I also extended the notion that regardless of the situation that I am put in, whatever situation put me to the moment that I need to make a decision, it is my responsibility to control myself. I am responsible for me. I am responsible to make sure that my decisions are appropriate, ethical, and moral. And if that means I'm put into a situation where I have no choice but to starve because everything about what I have available, of what I can end up doing with my own control, means that I starve to death but I am not harming another person, then so be it. And at what point is that evil? At what point is me saying I am not taking or hurting or devaluing another person and being responsible for myself evil? And that thought experiment, as I mentioned, is incredibly biased, which is why I asked, was that the only two options? Because in the real world, what else can we do if somebody's starving? Because clearly the only things that ever get shoplifted are bananas, right? Yeah, super high item. Bananas and apples and bread. This isn't Aladdin, by the way, right? We don't go to the little market and steal and then run away. And then everyone says, yeah, that's the hero of the story because you stole a loaf of bread. But that thought experiment, as I mentioned, was incredibly and unfairly biased, and I still chose the moral answer. Because in the real world, what are some solutions if you're starving? We have foundations such as Winnipeg Harvest. We can contact peers. right? Get on the phone and admit with absolute humbleness that I'm struggling and I need help. As I mentioned, for my own net worth, I can start selling some of my products so I can afford a bag of rice. I can go ahead and try to pick up some just under the table work in exchange for a sandwich. Right? Now I'm getting petty. But the fact is that solutions exist. Right? Like, dive in a dumpster, find berries. They're not all things that we want to do. But there are solutions to go ahead. And those are all systematic failures. The fact that those even have to be considered as options are failures of the system. Let's not take anything away from that. But for my argument to continue about how a selfish behavior like shoplifting only propagates the further economic challenges, and that just being automatically assumed as I'm pro-capitalism. Wake up! At no point was I saying protect the big businesses. I was telling you very simple and fundamental math. If you increase a cost of operation, if you increase the cost of goods, prices go up. And you could gladly have a counterpoint of businesses can afford it. You're right, they can. Do they want to? Show me a big business out there that's more than happy to eat costs. Corporations that control the bulk majority of anything and everything that we'll ever have access to are based on profit margin, not profit dollars, profit margin. Because those are the things that they have commitments with when it comes to their shareholders and any sort of future projections. It's not like somebody opens up a business one day and just takes a look in the piggy bank and see what they can pull off. There are futures that are considered in all of this. And when it comes to something like your operation costs, yes, it's budgeted. Absolutely, it's budgeted. But just imagine if those values did not have to go into the budget. If I owned my own business, and this isn't propaganda, by the way, if I owned my own business, and I'll just start thinking on the concept of a small business, let's say a convenience store. And if I did everything I could to make sure that my operation costs were as low as possible, I had the lowest possible rent, I'm minimizing the necessities of my utilities, I'm making sure to not overpay my staff versus the value that I get out of it, I'm making sure that I'm in a situation where I'm having competitive business, right, so that like I am receiving traffic, right, I'm not in the middle of nowhere, I'm optimizing my marketing, I'm taking advantage of all the rebates, I'm making sure to not worry about extra waste by being mindful about product and product expiries. And on and on and on and on and on. And I did everything that I could to make sure that my fundamental operation costs were as low as possible. And then shoplifting decided to just fall itself into my store. What do you think that does? That goes into my cost of operations. And then as a business owner, I can do one of two things. I can either eat it. Okay. And that's a personal decision. That is a decision that, okay, that's fine. Or, what if I was proposed with two challenges? One, my opportunity for gaining and growing business is difficult because I'm having struggle staying competitive with local with local competition because I'm not able to reduce my sell price because I still need to maintain an element of profitability to just have value in the store. Right? So what if I wanted to lower my price, but I really can't because I'm not able to do so because of a profit margin that continues to get thinner and thinner and thinner because of operating cost expense increases such as shoplifting? Then that means that business ends up eventually failing because there ends up being a point saying I can't live on 0.3% GP. Or what if this business says, no, I have a goal of expanding. I have a goal of retiring early. I have a goal of doing this, that, or the other thing, and I need to maintain a profitability of ABC for this period of time so that they could achieve that goal. And so when the operation cost increases, to get that goal, what do you need to do? Raise prices. And when you raise prices, this repeats again. And big picture, the big corporations especially do that. And then, insurance, right? They've got insurance companies to take care of that. 100%, yes. So then those insurance companies pay out for the shrink and loss. Those insurance companies then go ahead and take those claims, and over the course of time, they'll realize that, wow, we're paying out a lot of extra claims, and because we have our own business, we want to make sure that we're getting our cut, so we're going to have to go ahead and increase our rates. And we increase our rates as much as possible with minimizing any loss. Or we've already got customers who are committed to us, therefore we're just going to go ahead and reap that even. Which then means the insurance cost of that company ends up going up, which is in the operations cost. This isn't propaganda, it's math. Increasing cost means increasing sell price. Increased sell price, more difficult to own things. I don't even understand how this is a conversation, because everyone got so stuck on this anti-capitalism, anti-corporatism bullshit. Yes, it is a fucked up world, and yes, it is an unfortunate situation. No. Is there an immediate solution? No, not at all. Would there be just a great one-size-fits-all thing? Yes, the answer, as a matter of fact, to the one-size-fits-all thing is that the corporate fat cats that pretty much control the planet. Because everyone keeps talking about government, government, government. Who do you think the government receives assets from? The government has to call somebody to go ahead and build roads. The government has to call somebody to build tanks. The government has to call somebody to go ahead and send hydro here and there. Right? When it's all said and done, the government still has to cooperate with corporations. So yes, fundamentally, our planet revolves around corporates. Okay? And that sucks. So the one-size-fits-all thing, especially in a post-pandemic world, would be if those fat cats that end up deciding how everybody around the planet operates, because that's how the world is, if they decided to apply forgiveness for once, if they decided that all the debts that are necessary for every planet or for every country, right, that are owed, right, for like I said, like space programs and vaccines, right, and roads and whatever. If they all said that, you know what, we have a lot of money, the world needs to go ahead and kind of cool off a little bit and let everyone restructure their own assets, we don't need to get paid $90 billion or whatever each this year. That would be a solution. Is that going to happen? No, because the fat cats aren't fat enough. But continuing to believe that thieving the system is going to go ahead and resolve anything is baloney, because all that ends up coming out of it is an LOL fuck you from the corporate system. And at no point have I been pro-corporation, pro-capitalism, and to get pretty much accused and assaulted with that instead of reading the very simple words of the mechanisms of shoplifting being a selfish decision is frustrating. And it shows just the emotional response without putting any application of reasoning and reading into a very factual argument. I do not speak with opinions. I speak with things that are able to be backed up. Because even to the point where talking about well, no, it's not selfish or whatever, because whether it's, who's doing it, pretty much implying that it's the poor and so on, because fuck poor people, right? Interesting. Remember, as I mentioned, that the answer is both. In 2019, there was a study done. It's called The Psychology of Shoplifting, Development of a New Typology for Repeated Shoplifting. This was done in October of 2019. I'll post it in the comments too, or in the detail, or whatever. Blah, 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 abstract. 202 people were reported to be repeated shoplifters. and provided information about the shoplifting behavior, motivations, mental health, ethical attitudes, personal histories, and life circumstances. As far as I could tell, this is a US website, but culturally we're very similar, so I'm not going to say that, oh, it's Canada versus US, because principally in the Western world, we kind of all tick in and around the same sort of way. So out of 202 people, 28% shoplifted on loss-reactive decision-making, and that very simply, as far as I can understand, loss-reactive means that somebody took this from me, I need it, and I don't have the means to get it ethically. I'm taking it. Okay? 28% were loss-reactive. That's a selfish decision. Impulsive, 20%. Impulsive. That's very selfish. That is a very personal, I want this. Doesn't matter what the decision is, I want it now. Depression, 18%. Now, before we get into depression, about all the reasons for depression, I'm very aware about the mental health of our planet, let's just put it that way. But again, in the interest of depression, right, the reason for shoplifting is to gain a value, to find a happiness by shoplifting when rooted in depression. So, when we break down all the reasons, and we take away the reasons why we're depressed, and we take away the situation and the product and the elements, and we get down again to the action, selfish. It's frustrating, and believe me, I'm empathetic to it. Don't think that I've never suffered depression before. Hi, trans. I've dealt with it just a little bit. Remember my negative net worth? Hi, trans, kind of have a thing when it comes to money because trans. A hobbyist. Literally doing it for the thrill. 18%. Selfish. Addictive compulsive. Same category as depression. Started, got the thrill, can't undo the thrill. Things that could and should be able to be solved by a better equipped mental health system, for sure. But again, the action. I've done it, I got away with it, I enjoyed it, and I want to do it again. What does that sound like? That doesn't sound like economic hardship. It sounds like I like it, give me more. It sounds like an addiction. What are we going to categorize that as? 9%. Economically disadvantaged, out of all of that, 7%. And even then, right, as I mentioned, fundamentally, it is still a selfish action. But you want to go ahead and accuse, right, my perspective as you know, calling, like, first off, never even said, but to go ahead and say that, well, you know, you shoplift because you're challenged economically. 7% out of 202 people said that I really needed that loaf of bread. Everyone else said, I want it because some other reason. And that's not even to assume a loaf of bread if we want to talk about starving. For all we know, this is somebody stealing a TV. And they really wanted to have an opportunity to get something for the kids' Christmas. Or they really wanted to try to flip it so they can pay off a bill. Right? Like, just the angles that all of this came on when at no point have I discussed the individuals. At no point have I ever talked down on a reason or pardon me, have I devalued someone's personal situation. At no point did I ever actually start trying to drop bombs in people in our own conversation. Because these are the same people I think about when I'm busting my ass trying to make our community safer, because especially with all the stupid shit that's happened lately. The action of shoplifting says, I want this because reason, and regardless of what you feel, my feelings are greater than yours. That is immoral. If I went into your house and I took something of yours, regardless of what it is and what it means to you, you would get upset. I can't believe this is even a conversation. I can't believe the amount of just knee-jerk anti-capitalism that had no place actually in the conversation. I applaud anyone who wants to recreate a new system because yes, money rules how we operate, and that sucks. I don't like it either. I don't like feeling like I'm going to have to continue to generate revenue until I'm dead and still barely have anything worth having. Everything around me is literally bought secondhand, thrifted, or gifted. You have no idea what the types of meals I've put together to just have food. I've been pennies away from bankruptcy in a past life and clawed myself away from that. So don't tell me I don't understand the economic hardships that people go through. And it's not fair to get put into that bucket. I spoke on one value. Stop doing things to make it more difficult in the future. And that seems to be the biggest obstacle. Thinking about what the repercussions are, what the consequences are. And I told you the consequences. How evil is thinking about tomorrow, really?